今日我哋開始我哋嘅會議。
Members, it's the appointed time and we have a quorum. Item number 1. Briefing by the Secretary for Food and Health on the Chief Executive's 2019 Policy Address. And we have shared paper 3-243/19-20-01. Other relevant documents include the CE's 2019 Policy Address issued on the 16th of October and the CE's 2019 Policy Address Supplement and Leaflet. Would the Secretariat please invite the administration in? All other members of LESCO have been invited to take part in the meeting. Members, please raise your hands if you wish to speak. I welcome the administration, including Professor Sophia Chan, Secretary for Food and Health, Mr. Philip Yong, Permanent Secretary, Dr. Choi Tak-yi, Undersecretary, Ms. Vivian Lau, Director of Food and Environmental Hygiene, Dr. Leung Siu-fai, Director of Agriculture, Fisheries and Conservation, Dr. Sin Wai Mei, Government Chemist, Mr. Daniel Chang, Deputy Secretary for Food and Health, and Ms. Erica Ng, Deputy Secretary for Food and Health. Secretary, would you walk us through the initiatives? Good morning. Today, we will brief members on the policies of the Food and Health Bureau in areas such as agriculture, fisheries, food safety, veterinary, public health, and environmental hygiene. In terms of public markets, we aim to provide public market services with a new mindset. Last year's policy address announced the setting up of a public market at the Tin Shui Wai West MTR station. And in order to allow the public to enjoy services as soon as possible, I have announced that a new temporary public market would be built adjacent to Tin Sao Road Park using the modular integrated construction method. And it is expected to be completed and commissioned by the end of next year at the soonest. And the key to the new operation mode would be to reform the leasing and management systems of public markets to enhance business vibrancy and meet the needs of residents. And this would allow public markets to serve a greater social function in the future through placemaking for the residents. And we are going to pilot this new mode of operation at the Tin Shui Wai temporary market, and it will be extended to other new markets later on. Apart from plans to build new markets at Tin Shui Wai and Tung Chung Town Center, we are also planning to build a new public market at Kutong North New Development Area, and we will complete the site study for the new market at Chang Kwan No within a short time. With the establishment of the new term of district councils, we will consult the two relevant district councils as soon as possible. And we have achieved results in our mosquito control work this year. The ovitrap index for Aedes albopictus has dropped significantly since June, even though the number of dengue fever cases recording in nearby Asian regions have reached new highs, while the number of imported dengue fever cases recorded is significantly higher over the same period in 2018. We have not recorded confirmed cases of local dengue fever.
In the application of technologies to enhance pest control, FEHD has put on trial OV traps with improved design in certain places to calculate the density of adult mosquitoes directly since June, and the new design will be generally adopted next year for the provision of adult mosquito density data to the public. And FEHD has recently introduced a new design of mosquito trap with good results, and it will be applied to different places. And starting from April, the FEHD has put on trial night vision and thermal imaging cameras with artificial intelligence to capture video images for monitoring the extent of rodent activities since April. This will help us objective monitoring and of the effectiveness of our rodent control work. Secretary, I'm afraid we've already got your paper. Unfortunately, some members were late and we only have 1.5 hours. Can you be more succinct? Thank you. Thank you very much. That being the case, I will just highlight the important points of my paper. On the 20th of May, we started the summer cleaning campaign, and it has been extended by 3 months. And then at back alleys, housing estates, and eateries, we are still carrying out the campaign, and to reap long-term results. When on departments sign new contract, they have added a template for pest control. The buildings department and ASD in particular have drawn up practice notes for the professionals. As for public toilets, now the FEHD will improve 42 public toilets in this fiscal year. And as for keeping and cremation of abortuses, in early April, we have commissioned our facility at War Hub's Shack, and we will have a total of 1,300 keeping spaces, and there will be dedicated cremation facilities for abortuses in Kwai Chung. Animal welfare. We are now consulting the stakeholders on proposals to improve animal welfare with the aim to making legislative proposals soon. And Sustainable Agricultural and Fisheries Department, we would like to move towards high value added sustainable development. And we would like to help the mariculture sector to further develop and to switch to other modes of operation. We have two funds, Sustainable Agricultural Development Fund and Sustainable Fisheries Development Fund. They will relax their processing criteria. And food safety, the Center for Food Safety will continue to gatekeep for food safety in Hong Kong. We'll continue our regulatory work. And the food adulteration, metallic contamination regulations were completed last year, and we will consult the public on the regulatory regime of harmful substances in food, including industrially produced trans fat and mycotoxins. And as for ongoing initiatives, I would rather save time for members to ask questions. Mainly those initiatives are on tackling African swine fever and our burial policy. Thank you. Thank you, Secretary, because time is limited. Now, we have 27 members in this panel. And with other non-panel members present, we won't turn them down with only 80 odd minutes left. So I'll be very strict with time control. Each member can have up to 3 minutes for both questions and answers. Now, if you have used up your time in questions, I will ask the Secretary to jot down your questions and provide written replies later, okay? I hope colleagues from the Bureau and departments can be succinct in answering questions. I read out the names. A show of hands, please, because you are not seated according to the seating plan. Andrew Wen, Lo Wai Kwok, Kwok Ka Ki, Tony Z, Xia Wai Shan, Ray Chen, Helena Wong, Xiu Ka Chun, Xiu Ka Fai, Stephen Ho, Eunice Yong. Mr. Andrew Wen. 3 minutes is indeed very short, but I have to say this on behalf of the community. The government will not address the aspirations of the community until at the very last moment. Now, for the public market in Tin Shui Wai, they have been asking for that for a long time. Tin Shao Fair, for instance, can we have modular integrated construction method in a few more locations? We have made suggestions to you. Why do we have to store? Why is it so pathetic in Hong Kong? We have to fight for public market facilities. What about public toilets and libraries and drains? Yes, all of them. We have to fight for them before we can have them, all because of the government. Now, we've been fighting for this for 10 years. Now, for temporary markets, there will be one adjacent to Tin Shan Road Park, but that is hardly enough. Can you tell us the whole plan? Can you identify suitable places to build more? And in particular, in Tin Shui Wai, we should have another one, and then we haven't heard of any new development. And then near Tin Fok Road, there is a green belt. And also the along the cycle track, there is another park, and can you use it for a temporary market? Thank you, Mr. Wen, for your question regarding our public markets. We have a comprehensive plan for providing public markets. On the one hand, we need to build new markets. That is for the long term, and we've already identified the site for Tin Shui Wai market, but it takes time for it to be commissioned. So we will provide a temporary market first, and the other new projects in the pipeline will be delivered gradually. Now, and also modernization of public market. I didn't ask about modernization. I asked whether we can have another temporary market. Instead of Tin Shao, can we have a Tin Park? And then what about the permanent market in Tin Fok Road? Will we have one market in the north and south of Tin Shui Wai respectively? Thank you. I just wanted to explain to you the whole plan of FEHD in the provision of markets. As for temporary markets, this one is near Tin Shui Wai, and Tin Shao Road will try its management approach and the overall improvement. We'll do this first before applying this experience to other markets. I don't think other members will be happy with the way she answers questions. All right, keep calm. What about Tin Fok Road? There is a plan for Tin Shui Wai, and other locations will continue to listen to the views of members who have no other plans yet. Mr. Wai Kwok. Thank you. The policy address claims that they're going to provide market services with a new mindset. I think the aspirations of the community are very clear with regard to conventional markets. I fail to see how it is so difficult to build a new market. You have to think about so-called new operation mode. In fact, many markets are very successful nowadays. Chairman, I think you and I have this common interest, and that is good food and also going to markets. nowadays people like to drive to markets, and they have a multi-story market in Taipo. In fact, the market in Taipo is not really a new one. They used to have an old market, but now this new market is very popular and very viable. This is already a successful mode of operation. What else do you have to think about? It depends on whether the government has a clear positioning for our markets, and that is to provide new markets where there is a demand. In Fanling South and Fanling North and Kutong South, you are planning NDAs. As a matter of planning, you should provide public markets. I would like to know whether the government has changed its policy and agrees now that markets should be provided. I'm not saying that supermarkets are not necessary, but then in Hong Kong, people need and like wet traditional markets. Of course, by wet market, we can also buy a dry food there. Taipo Market is so successful because it has got a car park, and the turnover of the car park is very high because people mainly drive there to shop in the market. We usually have double income families in Hong Kong, and these couples have to drive to shop for groceries at weekends. So I think we should learn from this experience and act now. Dr. K.K. Kwok. When it comes to temporary markets, on the 8th of August, Carrie Lam, because of the extradition bill, well, she has been hiding in government house for a long time, and then she put up a show on the 8th of August and visited a market. In Hong Kong, we don't have enough public markets. Zhang Guan, Oma, Onshan, Tung Chung, and Tin Shui Wai have yet to have a public market. So will we have to wait longer, and then will we have to wait until everyone comes out to protest before we can have another public market? How many years do they have to wait? When it comes to Tin Shui Wan South, they will have to wait maybe 6 to 9 years before they can have one. And the market in Tung Chung is even more ridiculous. It will be inside a shopping built in a commercial building. We don't know whether it will be a true wet market. Grassroots in Tung Chung, Tin Shui Wai are not like Carrie Lam, who didn't even know how to shop for toilet rolls. Don't talk about outsourcing by the housing authority. Residents want wet markets that sell food at affordable prices. And what about bazaars in the community? Do you want 1 or 2 million people to take to the streets again before Carrie Lam can give us our long-awaited temporary market?
Thank you very much. Under the market modernization program, apart from temporary markets, we would assess whether markets are to be built at other areas. My question was, are you waiting for a few million people to hit the streets again before you do something? There is no market in many districts. Well, you have been repeating yourself. Well, and you actually asked a hypothetical question. That is, you asked whether the government would wait till 1 or 2 million people hit the streets again before they do something. Secretary, please. Thank you. We have 7 projects or plans for building new markets, but time would be needed for design, identifying sites, etc. That's why we decided to go for a temporary market first, and we have a 2 billion market modernization program, so work is actually underway already. There are calls for us to install air conditioning or carry out improvement works at various markets, so we are actually doing work on many fronts. Multiple members asked about Cheongkwano and Tongchong, etc. For the 7 or 9 markets you mentioned, plans are already in place as I know it. So have these plans been announced? Regardless of when these will be completed, have you actually confirmed sites for these works, and have you secured funding already? I believe many members are concerned about wet markets. As for the choice of sites, we have submitted plans to district councils in some of the cases already. So please let us know what the progress is and how we can possibly help. Mr. Tony Chair, thank you. The budget proposed using $600 million to renovate and optimize hundreds of public toilets in Hong Kong over 5 years. And the Secretary said 42 public toilets would be enhanced this year. I'm happy to see that technology would be deployed to enhance management and maintenance of the public toilets, and this is certainly worth doing. In light of the current situation, I hope the Secretary would consider extending the enhancement to more than 42 toilets. The FEHD and ArcSD should allow SMEs to take part in such works, and apparently they have heeded the advice, and we should allow SMEs and young entrepreneurs to exercise their creativity, and hopefully you can enhance more public toilets. And the timeline of 5 years is apparently too long. For public markets, the government would pilot a new mode of operation to enhance the leasing and management systems, etc. I think this is much needed. Likewise, in terms of application of technology, it should also be done with public markets and not just public toilets. If IT is applied more extensively, then you can overcome a lot of management issues. Would this be considered? Thank you very much. The FEHD would enhance 42 public toilets in the coming year. As to whether more toilets can be enhanced, since in the enhancement of public toilets we want to test new technologies, and the goal is to enhance management and achieve timely maintenance, we would apply technologies such as ozone, microalgae, nanobubble, etc. So we would have to assess the results of such applications in terms of public toilets or public markets. we have asked the FEHD to explore whether more innovative technologies can be applied. So you can see technology has been applied in pest control and public toilets, and I'm sure this would be done at public markets as well. Ms. Rebecca Chen. Many residents have two concerns. One, the prices of pork, and two, rodent nuisance. In terms of the price of pork, according to official figures in October 2018, compared with last year, there were 4,387 pigs. As of September this year, the number dropped to 1,700, and retail prices of pork hiked, and the price hit $140 per catty. So a lot of residents are complaining, and I know the government has offered a half-year rental waiver for some tenants, but this has not helped with the retail prices. And slaughterhouses no longer have to be closed if they are found to be compliant. But as for the Shenzhen interim slaughterhouse or warehouse, it could still be closed. So will the government open up more live pig farms in the mainland in order to rationalize the pork prices in Hong Kong? This problem has lingered without people seeing a way out. And I want to talk about rodent control as well. You talked about new technologies, but the nuisance still exists in many housing estates. And rodent nuisance is still very serious in many places. So what other solutions do you have? In terms of live swine supply, we have been monitoring the prices of pork, and a priority is to prevent African swine fever among pigs in Hong Kong. And we are also discussing with the mainland authorities to see if they will allow more pigs to be imported to Hong Kong every day. And we would also have to do a good job in quarantine. There has been outbreak of ASF on the mainland, and if the situation improves, I believe the supply would also increase. As for other ways to increase supply, some people ask whether pigs could be imported from places such as Thailand. We remain open on such ideas, but this would take time, so we are going to explore with the stakeholders. As for rodent nuisance, in terms of interdepartmental efforts, we have different working groups to deal with the issue. Some convened within the department and some by the Chief Secretary. Apart from enhancing enforcement work by the FEHD, such as surveillance and prosecution, work has been done on many fronts. Mr. Ray Chan. In the Secretary's paper and speech, she talked about promoting animal welfare, including enhancing public education, preventing acts of animal cruelty, and legislative amendments. Does the Secretary know that for domestic animals or community animals, what is the biggest plights they are facing? That is, the police has been indiscriminately applying or using tear gas or tear smoke. Well, for humans, we could swear, but the animals cannot do anything. The tear gas has reached homes, and cats and dogs and birds might be killed. Well, pet owners know that these animals are very sensitive to tear gas, and we would not even use incense or aroma at home. And the community or wild or stray animals could not speak for themselves. Are you going to educate the police when you talk about public education? Such their acts are acts of cruelty to animals, including pets. So where can the public seek help or hold anyone responsible? What is the role of the FEHD? Such acts are happening every day. Are you going to issue guidelines by working with the animal welfare organizations and assess whether the police's acts are reasonable? You cannot just say that you trust the professionalism of the police, because this is what Hong Kong people are seeing every day. Our cats and dogs are in danger. So how would you follow up? Secretary, thank you very much for your view. For police dogs, the vets of the AFCD have assessed their conditions, and there is nothing irregular or abnormal. As for the inhalation of tear gas, it might cause some discomfort to humans, but the effects are temporary. So if there is any adverse reaction, help should be sought from healthcare professionals. So what can be done if cats and dogs inhale tear gas? Director, please. If animals are affected by tear gas, so help can be sought from vets. So this is one option. And secondly, appropriate treatment can be considered. So is medicine actually available on the market to treat cats and dogs subject to tear gas? I'm not a vet, so I do not know what the situation looks like. But for animals subject to certain chemical substances, there could be symptoms, but I recommend that help be sought from a vet. Dr. Helena Wang. Road nuisance is very serious at Oyman Estate, and we have discussed this with the government. I hope the government could help the buildings department or the housing department deal with the issue.
With regard to food safety, both the Audit Commission and the Ombudsman have issued reports pointing out issues, safety issues or regulation of food imported. So can you give us a report on recommendations that have been accepted and carried out? And for the outstanding ones, can you tell us when you will, what is your follow-up plan? You can just give me a report later. Another question is related to Yau Ma Tei fruit wholesale market, because tear gas was fired rather rampantly there. And because Yau Ma Tei fruit wholesale market is a place where fruits distributed in Hong Kong. We are worried that the fruits there might be contaminated, and I'd like to know whether FUHD has checked on the extent of contamination, whether there will be any adverse health impacts on us. We received information yesterday that the waters near Aberdeen have had a strange phenomenon. The color and the water was blue. Was it related to the discharge of blue liquid from our water cannon vehicles? You talked about sustainable fisheries development. Will mariculture zones be affected? Will the blue liquid from water cannon vehicles contaminate our waters? What is the content of the blue liquid? Will our marine life be affected to the extent that fish from Hong Kong waters is no longer edible? Can people continue to fish there? You have 3 questions, so you don't need any oral reply on rodent infestation in Oilman Estate. Dr. Helena Wong asked about fruit or food that might be contaminated by any pollutants, and you named tear gas just now, and I think the way of handling is just the same. Usually wash them under running water, and then the pollutants on the surface can be washed away. I think the question is, since tear gas has been fired quite frequently in the vicinity of the wholesale market, has anyone from your bureau taken samples of the fruits there for testing? Now for tear gas, the substances of the same category of other pollutants. Are you serious? Will there be CS and other harmful substance there? You have used up your time. Allow her to complete your question, her replies first. Yes, we have checked. Even if we test the fruits, well, the pollutants are not unique from tear gas. Have you ever tested them? Now, that being the case, all pollutants can be washed away by running water. What about the blue liquid? And if you find it problematic, don't eat it. And as for the blue liquid, I don't have information with me right now, but according to the police, a blue liquid from the water cannon vehicles is not toxic, non-toxic. Mr. Shu Ka-chun, we have a tear gas buffet on Sunday, and then on Monday I bought 4 Korean pears from Yau Ma Tei. I still have 3 at home. Should I eat them or not? I cannot approach the Food Center for Food Safety. What should I do with the remaining 3? If they can be eaten after washing, then perhaps I can give you one. Let me have one too. Well, I want to treat the secretary. And you talked about comprehensive plan for temporary markets. Can you can you withdraw your comments? Because in March, I had a meeting with the Bureau together with community organizations. We asked that a temporary market be built, and you said that there was no such plan, and temporary market built by the community was vetoed. I asked whether a temporary market can be provided in the coming 5 years. Your reply was there was no plan to do that. And then on the 8th of August, Carrie Lam visited Tin Shui Wai, and now we learned that there will be a temporary market. Is that what you called a comprehensive plan? So is it that whenever there is any move from Carrie Lam, the whole plan will be changed? What is the mode of operation of your temporary market? Can you promise us that it will not be operated by a contractor? How can you ensure that individual store operators can operate there and there will be no monopoly and control by a single contractor? Will you allow the local community to set up an advisory committee to operate and to monitor the effectiveness of operation of the temporary market? Secretary, thank you. Mr. Xu Ka-chun. The first question relates to fruits. As I said, usually pollutants can be washed away with clean fresh water, and if you find it problematic, do not eat it. And the Center for Food Safety has a regular food surveillance program, and it takes samples from different locations for testing, and fruit is among the categories for testing. As for temporary market, perhaps I didn't make myself clear. I didn't really mean a comprehensive plan for temporary markets, rather a plan for modernization and revitalization of markets, and that include construction of new markets. Second, how we are going to spend that $2 billion to modernize our existing markets, and a few markets will start very soon, and the third approach is minor works. That is the plan from FEHD. Regarding the construction of temporary markets, it depends on the district concerned. If in a particular district it takes too long to build a permanent market, and if there is a suitable location, we can have a temporary market first. The mode of operation and advisory committee. You have overrun. I will invite the Secretary to provide a written reply because this is not really a pressing question. Two members have asked about the situation of our fruit wholesale market. Is it really that difficult for the department to collect some samples from the wholesale market for testing? I'll ask the FEHD to reply because the department and CFS have conducted some study in relation to this concern of yours. Well, now, I'd like to know whether you've ever taken fruits from the fruit wholesale market for testing, or do you take samples from retail outlets? What is your usual practice? Under our food surveillance program of CFS, we will take food samples from different sources for testing at the point of import, distribution, and retail as well. So you cover the fruit wholesale market. Yes, because the fruit wholesale market is main distribution point. Okay, Mr. Xu Ka-fai, I'm pleased to hear that a temporary market with 40 stores will be built at Tin Shui Wai. But it won't be available until the end of next year. So counting from August, it would take 16 months. Some say that even a skyscraper can be built within that time frame. So why is it going to take you so long? There are existing markets here, some of them are rather vacant because they don't have air conditioning. For refurbishment of markets, how many have you covered? Secretary, I don't think you can complete all markets even if you're going to serve another term. So you should ask them. You should see how you can split the contracts because many people will be unemployed very soon, and then you could split the projects and more people can have a share. The Garden of Forever Love will be for placing abortuses, and you also have a dedicated cremation facility. This aside, we are very short of niches as well. Well, people have nowhere to live when they are alive, and it also takes a long time for the ashes to be placed in niches. So you should think of something concrete. We have so many country parks and people don't worship their ancestors every day, only once or twice a year. As regards hospitals. Well, our elderly do not have any elderly homes. And if they are stored in public hospitals, we don't have sufficient resources there as well. So you have to think of a way out. And pigs, crabs, and now as Ms. Rebecca Chen said, pork prices have gone up by threefold, and the number of input has dropped. And then for hairy crabs, nowadays it's so hard to buy hairy crabs. People like hairy crabs, but if our standards are too stringent, then there can be no importation from the mainland, and prices have gone up, and people don't have hairy crabs to eat. So you have to think of a solution for us. Well, now we're going to use a modular integration construction to build a temporary market. It is much quicker this way. Although the place is there, we need the help of ASD. We understand the needs of the community, and we will try our very best. And as for the supply of public niches, in the coming year, we have a few tens of thousands of niches available. If we take into account those from Zhengzhou, we will have more than 100,000 new niches, and we'll continue to identify locations in all 18 districts. The legislation on private columbaria has been enacted, and there will be new private columbaria approved. And we'll continue to promote green burial. As regards food, we'll continue our efforts. When it comes to tear gas, as members are concerned whether there will be residue there. Now, we're talking about tear gas, not your regular food surveillance. Now, can you ask FUHD to check the fruits of places where tear gas has been fired, and then you can check it, and if it is found to be okay, then everyone can rest assured. Well, Mr. Shilgajan proposed giving you one pair for testing. All right. One for the secretary, one for me, and one for CFS to test. Well, even though you have tested that, you don't know the source of the pair. Mr. Stephen Ho, the government is not performing that well this morning. Well, when members talked about blue liquid, you didn't use common sense. They talked about blue liquid in Aberdeen when water cannon vehicles were mainly deployed in Kowloon. So if the blue liquid is problematic, the Victoria Harbour should be affected first. So when we talked about agriculture and fisheries, you dodged the question, and when it comes to a political issue, you don't use common sense. All right, the firing of tear gas, people ask you to check the fruits. Of course, you should do so if the environment is affected. But whether tear gas should be fired is within the professional regime of the police. You should give all our concerns to the police, and whether tear gas should be fired is a decision by the police. And then those who are rational and peaceful have not severed ties with those so-called warriors. Do you have a question? Yes, blue liquid. And second, test the fruits. You should test the fruits and use data for the government to make a professional judgment. And I think the government is always wrong with some fundamental issues. The policy address talks about making more mariculture zones, but we are also talking about the relationship between old and new fishermen. And the old fishermen here have a lot of views about protection of their livelihood.
When there's a typhoon, the fishermen would have to bear the full losses. And since 2012, we have been talking about disaster protection with the government. If you don't do something about it, even with the new marine fish culture zones, they would not be effective. So in terms of basic protection, how can the government encourage fishermen to join the trade? And this is very important. There are 3 questions. The first 2 questions have probably been addressed, while the first question hasn't. As for the blue water, well, actually, the police did not do anything on Hong Kong Island. So can the water actually travel from Kowloon to Hong Kong Island? Perhaps you can offer a written response. So please answer the third question about the new and existing fishermen. We care about fishermen, and Mr. Stephen Ho has offered his views on the way forward. The AFCD has been doing work on this front, so I would defer to Mr. Dr. Lang Xiufai. For the fisheries trade, we have been offering an emergency relief fund. And the trade has told us that the protections are not adequate in case of disasters. So we are monitoring the situation. In terms of equipment and technology, we are exploring how we can help the fishermen in case of disasters. We are going to introduce some new wind and wave resistant installations, and we will offer courses to new and existing fishermen. And this would help protect the fish culture trade in case of disasters. And we also have funds in place to help fishermen in a financial perspective. Are you happy with the answer? I request a written response to all 3 questions. He talked about review of the emergency relief fund. I would like to see a timetable for that. Ms. Eunice Yong, thank you. I'd like to ask about markets. For the Cheung Kwan O market, last year's policy address promised that a site would be identified, but this is yet to happen. Why is that the case? The Secretary wants to wait till the district elections are over before consultation can be done. So what is the government actually still thinking about in terms of rodent nuisance, wild monkeys, wild pigeons, wild boars, etc.? For rodents, you said technology is available, so I would like to know the results. For the new equipment or AI equipment that would detect the locations of rodent, I'd like to know the extent to which the problem has been contained. As for wild pigeons, wild boars, and wild monkeys, reporting is very difficult in some areas. People have to report to the FEHD or AFCD, and the officers must witness the problems for themselves before further work can be done. So even if pictures are taken and sent to you, nothing would be done. So in terms of the results of prosecution and patrol work, would anything be improved? The problem with wild boars is particularly serious. They have encroached upon residential areas, and we even saw wild boars in Causeway Bay. So in the coming well, in the new policy address, are there any measures in place? Thank you. For the Chung Kwan O market, we will complete and announce the study within a short time. Is this subject to approval by the district council? Well, we have to report our work to the district council. Why would you have to wait for the district council elections? Well, the district councils are still working. Well, the report will be published soon, and they would have to report to the new term of district council. So why would you have to wait for a new term of district councils? They do not have to wait for the district councils, but you cannot exclude the district council. Well, please let the Secretary talk about the situation with the wild monkeys and wild pigeons. I would defer to the FHD for rodent nuisance and the AFCD for the wild boars and wild monkeys. Ms. Lau, in terms of rodent nuisance, we are using new technology to tackle the issue. Like I said, since April, we have been deploying night vision and thermal imaging cameras to capture video images, and we have been conducting surveillance at markets and back alleys, and we are also deploying AI. The technology allows us to monitor the activity of rodents and we can draw up strategies accordingly and identify key areas. The results have been positive so far, and we will look into expanding the application to many other areas. Ms. Lau, what about the wild boars and wild monkeys? For wild monkeys and wild boars, we have set up dedicated teams respectively. For wild monkeys and wild boars, they could be attracted by food in residential areas. We are looking at adopting improved litter bin designs, and we have adopted such in pilot areas. If the results are positive, we will mass manufacture these improved litter bins, which would prevent wild boars and wild monkeys. Another reason for that could attract these animals is feeding from the public. So through enforcement and publicity, we would enhance our efforts. Citizens who want to lodge complaints or reports can call 1823. The FHD would carry out investigation and enforcement accordingly. Education and publicity are also very important, so we will reinforce our efforts in these areas. If wild boars or wild monkeys impose immediate danger or threaten public safety, we will deploy our teams to capture these animals to be released at rural areas. And on the long run, we would carry out neutering. Ms. Claudia Mo, in terms of cruelty to animals, I hope the Secretary would take a more sensitive approach. The police said the deployment of police dogs is not to attack protesters, but to protect police officers. This is just laughable. You have all the ammunition, and yet you need dogs to protect yourselves. The police said they would not be affected by tear gas since the dogs have a coat, and their eyes could be rinsed. But no one talked about the impacts on the dogs' noses and respiratory systems. So they said the vets have assessed the situation. Are they saying that the SPCA vets were lying? I understand if you are reluctant to condemn the police, but at least can you urge the police not to deploy police dogs anymore during protests? Thank you very much. The AFCD has a lot of vets. So in such scenarios, we would communicate with the vets. Are you going to involve vets from the SPCA as well? Well, they will maintain communication. Her question was whether vets from independent NGOs such as the SPCA can be involved to follow up on these issues. I would defer to the FCD. Director, please. First of all, the AFCD vets are all professionals. If the police requests some technical advice or support, our vets would offer assistance. As to whether other NGOs, including SPCA, would be required to provide help, I think this would depend on whether requests are made by the police. This attitude is unacceptable. You are treating animals like slaves. You are asking them to work as usual, and you said this is acceptable for them. We have a piece of law against cruelty to animals. The maximum penalty is $200,000 and of fine and 3 years imprisonment. You are not being sensible. Ms. Ao Nok Hin, he's not here. Ms. Elizabeth Quad, thank you. Recently, I have been following up on the issue of rodent nuisance. During a cleanup operation in the last 2 months, we saw improvements in some areas which used to have very serious rodent nuisance, but at recent times, the rats return again. So after a cleaning operation, the nuisance would disappear for 1 or 2 months, and then the rats will come back. So a single cleanup operation cannot solve the problem. At recent times, citizens or residents have complained that the rats are coming back. So on the long run, you should identify real solutions to overcome rodent nuisance. This is a major cause of concern. Your efforts alone are not enough, and collaboration with other government departments are also needed. This is about building management and overall hygiene of the housing estates. If you just work on public markets, you cannot stop rats altogether. In terms of the steering committee on pest control, should it be chaired by the chief secretary, because this is a territory-wide problem? Can you foster interdepartmental cooperation?
The second question is about public toilets. I understand that you are going to work on a few dozens. And I've heard that in other countries, they outsource the management of public toilets at more popular places. And some public toilets are now very innovative. They become tourist attractions, and they use advertising revenue to cover the operating costs. I think all these can be considered, because if we leave them to the government, I'm afraid it would take a long time before all public toilets can be modernized. So can you use some lateral thinking? Thank you. Yes, you're very correct. Our interdepartmental working group, chaired by the Undersecretary, works on this issue, and the CS4A is also very concerned about this subject, and sometimes he attends our meetings, and we are given more resources for different departments to work on that. And there is also coordination among government departments. For instance, the housing department has built more rodent guards to keep off the rodents, and I agree that we should have sustained efforts in public education and cleaning. And the FEHD has considered new designs and technologies in modernizing our public toilets and in building new ones. We will adopt new design, and I understand that they've already adopted some new technologies. It's not just about the hardware, the odor, the management, the air quality are all their concerns. I'm talking about outsourcing the operation. Dr. Elizabeth Quat, you spent more than 3 minutes on your questions already. Mr. Wilson, now I'd like to tell FUHD, AFCD that wild pigs is a big nuisance. The bus terminus at Lam Tien have frequent sightings of wild pigs, so please take note of that. Now I'd like to talk about rodent infestation, and you should also help to prevent the breeding of mosquitoes and midgets, because during the rainy season, mosquitoes is a big nuisance, and I think you have only adopted a stopgap approach. You may talk about using new technology, but I think we still have a lot of mosquitoes. So tell us what other ways you have to tackle this problem. Now I'd like to turn to pork. The price of pork has risen so much. It's selling at more than $100 per kg. And this morning I chatted with some butchers, and they said that the supply of pork is very short. So can you tell us, in terms of importation, whether you can improve the number? I think the supply of pork is still very short. Can you tell us what other measures you have? Now I'd like to talk about burial policy. Hong Kong people are so sad. It's hard to find housing when alive, and it's also difficult to find niches afterlife. So you talked about another 1,000 in the coming year. Can you tell us the progress of licensing of private columbaria? I'm very concerned about the progress of licensing of private columbaria. Otherwise, our dead will have no place for burial. And for green burial, are there ways to enhance promotion of green burial? Lastly, I turn to a subject very close to the heart of the community, and that is public markets. In the last policy address and budget, there was a lot of proposals about public markets. Can you update us, please? Midgets and also mosquitoes are our concern. For mosquitoes, we have got new technology, and we have tried out a new design of mosquito trap, and is found to be effective and will be extended to other districts. And we've also enhanced our technology in the taking of monthly OV trap index. In fact, the indices have been dropping for a few months already. As regards the supply of live pigs, as I said, we have been liaising with the relevant authorities in the mainland. There is still African swine fever in the mainland, and even supply from the mainland is limited. And every day they can give us 1,500 pigs. We continue to liaise with them. When ASF has improved in the mainland, we can then have more supply, and we don't rule the possibility of importation from other places. We've been given suggestions from the community as regards burial policy. Mr. Oh asked about the licensing regime for private columbaria. We have already granted 4 licenses. There is another one with approval in principle. And we are now continuing with our work. 13 private columbaria that have failed to attain our standards have been rejected. I think we have been very effective in promoting green burial. At first, it was only about 10%. Last year, in 2018, it was about 14.8%. And now, the percentage has risen to 16%. So we can see a rising trend, and we will continue to promote green burial. And as for supply of public niches, we will continue with our efforts. Only 7 minutes left. Mr. Vincent Zhang just raised his hand. I'm afraid I cannot accommodate you because we've only got 7 minutes left. Dr. Anne Zhang, Ho Kai Man, and myself are still on the list. I have to be very strict, Dr. Zhang, because I don't have much time left. All right. Anyone from the administration, please see if you can answer my question. I think it's a common concern that we have more rodent infestation. Do you know the number of mice a female rodent can breed a year? And do you know the average lifespan of a rat? In Hong Kong, we have both gray and black rats. Do you know the population of rodents is about 15 times that of an urban population, according to international experts? That means in Hong Kong, we have about 100 million rodents. So according to the officials' record, we can only kill a few tens of thousands of rodents per year. So do you know what will be the total population 10 years down the road? All right. Of course, we don't want the rodent infestation problem to worsen, and we are pressing ahead with our work. I know you are doing a lot. I just want answers to these 3 questions. Let's see if the FUHD has got any information. If not, we can provide some information afterwards. Yes, for very specific replies or data, we have to wait till after the meeting. Yes, rodents breed very quickly. And if we do not raise with them, then the situation can be serious. And then I will provide the answers in a supplementary reply. We've already tried all sorts of methods. The most important thing is to keep our place clean. So we have spent a lot of time and resources in running a cleaning campaign. The cleanliness of our back alleys is most important, and FUHD targets back alleys in particular. Well, in fact, I've got the following information. On average, the lifespan of a rodent is 10 to 12 years. A female rodent can breed up to 10 to 12 litters, and then I think your time is up. Perhaps you can give us a letter later, Mr. Ho Kai-ming. The FHD is rather largely. Well, you started the summer cleaning campaign in May. I haven't seen a marked reduction in rodents in Hong Kong. I have not seen your posters either. So can you give us quantifiable data? Usually in draft estimates from 2001 to now, the average number of rodents killed per year is rather stable. So from the 20th of May to now, I'd like to know the number of rodents killed, because we have put in special resources to tackle them. So how many of them have been killed? And what about places with illegal dumping and black spots of public hygiene? How many summonses have you issued? Please do not target restaurants. No, I'm not targeting restaurants. I'm talking about places that are particularly dirty. Can you well, in wet markets of FEHD, there is so much food to feed the rodents. Well, I talked about back alleys of restaurants. Well, in fact, we've also targeted wet markets. Can you give us some figures? From the 20th of May to the 20th of this month, that is around 5 months. When it comes to dead rodents collected, over 10,000. Those caught alive, 8,000 odd. We have eliminated 4,600 rodent holes, and we have got 4,000 odd prosecutions and over 10,000 fixed penalty tickets issued. That is a fine of $1,500 per ticket. But the number of rodents killed was very much like that of last year. Usually you have 40 to 50,000 per year. You talked about enhanced efforts, but if you multiply it by, if you project that into the figures for the whole year, it would just be roughly the same. Yes, the number of rodents caught is of course important. Perhaps you should issue an order, because so many people are not happy with you, and if you cannot kill more than 100,000 rodents, you may as well resign. No. You every year the figure is very much the same. You look at the figures and the draft estimates. Well, she said that she could not quantify their efforts. Now, my questions, you can choose to answer my questions or not. One, we are short of pork, we don't have enough poultry or chicken. I hope you can relax the licensing conditions for local poultry and pig farms to encourage them to rear more poultry and pigs. I think this can lower the carbon footprint and is environmental friendly. Local poultry and pigs are always good. It's not that we don't like pork and poultry from the mainland. It's just that they are giving us less. Now, I scolded you for a while, but now I've stopped to do so because they don't have enough supply in the mainland for themselves. Well, we have now an oligopoly. Instead of 3, we have only 1 distributor in Hong Kong. So can We do the same for pigs and for pork and pig. Pork, can our procurers can our buyers go into the mainland directly and buy our own pigs and cattle, so that it will be a similar practice to that of poultry? This is not the first time I have raised this. Can you please consider this possibility?
咁你都覆下我哋啦，好嘛？
So please offer a reply on that. Dr. An Chang, you have used up your slot. If I allow you to speak again, then everyone would follow suit. We now proceed to any other business. We have no AOB. Meetings adjourned.